there's no way, even the best mind, the best Chozara understood the Rebbe completely out of farbrengen. And then by Chozara, we would sit down and reconstruct it. The Rebbe could have easily, like with other Rabbeim, most of their Torah they wrote. The Alter Rebbe wrote Tanya by himself from beginning to end. Didn't rely on Chozrim and didn't rely on Meiniachim. There were many Maimarim, the Alter Rebbe said that he did rely that people would remember and write down. L'kutei Torah is mostly not the Alter Rebbe. Once in a while, the Tzemach Tzedek will say this is Loshen Admur Nashmerseidin Ba'atzmei or something. The Rebbe, on the other hand, most of his, besides letters, actually, letters, many more of them were also dictated. But farbrengens, for sure, the reason he chose, he basically allowed human beings like us to write down what he said.
Well, that fits with the Rebbe.
Yeah. It was like a Torah Shabbat Peh idea. Why is there a Torah Shabbat Peh, not Torah Shabbat only? Because Hashem wants us to also be part of the process of so-called evolution of Torah thought.
Thank God you're blessed with such a memory, but explain to me how... Did it just come naturally like this, or did you have to... I can't even imagine preparing oneself. Could I learn how to be a Chozara?
It's a very good question. There are things that you can learn. Some people remembered oisius, phrases that the Rebbe said well. But others remembered the sequence well. Others understood well the Rebbe's ideas. There were three different types of memories. Right. And the truth is, by Chozara, you saw. I mean, once I got into it, and I learned to access different types of Chozarim, because each one had different strengths.
So it had to be a collaborative effort to come to the final product.
Yeah. But the main writer, in the case when I was writing, like I became the main writer Chanukah Tov Mem, which in the secular calendar would be 1979, end of 79, Chanukah. The first farbrengen, full farbrengen I wrote was Shabbos Chanukah Tov Mem, and I continued being the main writer until Tov Nun Beis. So as I became more experienced, what I would learn is to access different people who were really good at different, like Rabbi Yael, for example, himself was excellent. Besides his experience was tremendous, because he did it longer than anybody, was his understanding of the Rebbe's approach. Because you can remember the Oisius.
What do you mean his approach?
It's a method. It's a method.
Of how the Rebbe delivered
there are big
the whole
Talmidei Chacham that came to farbrengen, scholars, who didn't understand the Rebbe well. Because it's a method, how the Rebbe analyzed the Pasuk. There's a certain methodology. So it's not just remembering the Oisius or the ideas the Rebbe is saying.
And that was from farbrengen through farbrengen. That was
overall. It's a methodology. And after you learn the methodology, it helps tremendously. Because you understand how the Rebbe processes, how he develops an idea. There's a method. There's a method of how developing an idea, how it unfolds, so to speak. So not that you can anticipate what he's going to say, but when he says it, you get right away, you capture the approach.
And when you say Meiniach, are we dealing with that part called the Meiniach would go into the Rebbe?
No.
Or no?
No. In a Shabbos, the structure was usually two sichas. Right. One, the general theme. The second, usually the kfiyas, like what day in the month it is, or a specific element in the parsha, and so on. With, of course, always with a hira, always with directive on life, something practical. Then usually would come, the third thing would be like a mimer. There was a mimer, regular mimer, where the Rebbe they would sing with a nigun, and everyone would rise and the Rebbe would say it with a sing-song. There was a mimer ke'en sicha that the Rebbe at some point introduced, which he says he's smuggling in a mimer, because the mimer was like considered to be a very holy, divine thing, God speaking. It says a mimer, and the Rebbe said a mimer was as if God is speaking through him, like Moshe at Sinai. So the Rebbe had a mimer ke'en sicha, which was without a nigun. It was said the same tone as the regular sicha, but you saw that it began with a pasuk, with a verse, and then the Rebbe would explain something from Chassidus. And the next sichas would be, usually in a Shabbos, would be a sicha on Rashi, the Rebbe's father's notes on the Zohar. In the weeks where we studied Pirkei Avos, something on Pirkei Avos. And then later, when Rambam was instituted in Tov Mem Daled, something, a piece on the Rambam. And then often at the end was also some special directive, Mivtza Chanukah, Mivtza Pesach, current events. And this was a structure of a farbrengen. This is a general structure. There were exceptions. All this had to be memorized. And then by Chozara, we would sit down and reconstruct it. And
you wouldn't get crib notes in advance?
No. That we tried several ways to.
Did you?
Yeah, but it didn't work. we tried to get Rabbi Weinberg, who used to chazar these farbrengens on the radio. We tried to convince him to write to the Rebbe that maybe he can get a summary of the farbrengen, the Rebbe's own summary. That would have been helpful, but it didn't work that way. Not only didn't we get crib notes, we had no idea what the Rebbe was going to talk about. He could talk about anything.
Right.
So we had to prepare. I would usually learn through the Torah or the Kutei Torah of the Parsha, or Eira Torah from Tzemach Tzedek, because the Rebbe would always refer to or discuss themes from Chassidus. And but then sometimes the Rebbe would speak about things you couldn't expect.
So you would write down the farbrengen. Then what would happen?
So Sunday we dedicated to research. I start looking at the Maimarim, the Gemaras, the Midrashim, the Mefarshim. The Rebbe would quote a lot. And then you suddenly saw, oh, that's what he meant, those words, because it's a Lashon and Torah, which at the time we didn't know. So I would tell you right now that there's no way, even the best mind, the best Chozara understood the Rebbe completely at a farbrengen. You got the Eisis, you got the general idea, but you could not appreciate it until you went through all the sources. And then you got all confused, and then it started emerging. By Tuesday night, I had usually the first draft ready of a farbrengen.
Of the whole farbrengen?
Yeah, Tuesday night,
And you
Wednesday.
did this on your own?
Mostly on my own.
Okay.
If I had questions, I would call somebody. Sometimes I had a doubt. Sometimes, but once it was written, I distributed it to a few people to look through, editors.
Not the Chozrim?
Some Chozrim, yeah,
Chozrim,
Chozrim.
okay.
Also would go to another person who was good at Mar Mekamis, footnotes, to annotate it. And this became, then I would get back everybody's comments, and I'd incorporate it. And then we had the opportunity, which I completely exploited, to ask the Rebbe questions. I asked the Rebbe many, many questions. If there was something unclear or something contradictory, we'd ask the Rebbe. We couldn't ask the Rebbe, you know, we missed 10 minutes of what you said, tell us what you said, that not. But in Havana of what the Rebbe said, I asked almost every farbrengen, I would say 5-6 questions.
And
the
you would get
Rebbe
answers back?
Immediately, within 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It was like a priority.